So let's take a quick look at the Saeco Philips Royal espresso machine here. Once you get off all the covers and everything, you can see the insides. There are two boilers here. This is the high pressure steam boiler. Please notice that you have two different types of fittings here. You have a high pressure crimped fitting, and you have a lower pressure clasp type fitting. If you have to replace one of these high pressure fittings, you have to do it with a really good strong clamp. You can't use a weak clamp. The most important, the point of failure on these espresso machines is the high pressure pump. There are two pumps in this system, high pressure pump and the low pressure pump. They're mounted on this skid, which has rubber mounting ears in it. And this skid is mounted at the very bottom of the machine. The very bottom of the machine. It's extremely difficult to get to. So take note of the fact that there is a hole here to screw down the main power plug in the back. You can see it's flopping around down in there. So to get this out, you have to first remove the screws from the tops of these two brackets. I have left the boilers attached to the brackets, and I've left all the hoses attached to the boilers. So these are upside down right now. This is the top of the bracket. It screws down to these holes here. The top of this bracket screws down to these holes. Okay, so once you get these out, then you can reach down in the bottom and pull out this sled here. I call it a sled. These two pumps are attached. The high pressure pump is attached here, and the low pressure pump is attached here. And they're just sitting in there loose. Also take note of the fact that this large silicone hose system is what attaches up to your water supply, and it essentially provides water to all the pumps and all the other parts of the system. The high pressure pump is nothing more than an electromagnet here. Those are two 110 volt AC connectors. And when you supply power to this vibrates back and forth. The very tip of that is the pump. That's why you get such high pressure from it, because it's such a small cross section moving back and forth in here. Be aware of the fact also that this fitting, which you can see there, that I broke, screws in. There are threads on it. There are threads on it. So that screws in to the end of this fitting here. So when you're disassembling it from that, you have to disconnect this fitting. Don't pull on it like I did, because I broke it off. This is for repair of the Royal One Touch line of Cappucino espresso makers by Philips Saeco. If your output from the coffee spout starts to slow down or stop, it's usually the high pressure water pump. The high pressure water pump is buried way down in the bottom of the cabinet. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Of course, before you start, you want to remove the brew group. You want to unplug it, turn it off, remove all the bins and other plastics. 2 screws on the lower rear secure the main power plug. One part of the pump assembly bracket. There's one on the side which secures the bottom of the pump assembly bracket. 2 screws hold on the rear of the upper tray assembly. 4 screws hold on the top of the upper tray assembly, here, there, and there. The coffee grinder control handle is fastened here. Coffee funnel goes in here. The coffee bin goes on top. It gets fastened down with 2 screws here and here. Okay, here are all the connections under the cover unit. Both of the water connections that come down from the water container, the water level detector, bracket. There's another connection here. You see I have marked. Always mark your connectors. Mark them so you know how they go back together. Here's another sensor. I think that's a heat detector, a heater detector. So that's all ready to go back. That's how it comes apart. Okay, here are both of the boiler brackets screwed down to the cabinet. All the connections are made, all the electrical connections are made. I'll give a good close look at them. There. And this set of connections goes to the upper part of the coffee maker. So each of the pumps here and here gets 2 electrical connectors here and here and a thermal protection device. The thermal protection devices are held in place by a dab of hot glue from the factory. So here is the fully assembled pump assembly. That is going to drop into this hole here and set on the very bottom of the chassis. Please notice that the main power plug assembly and the switch assembly is here, and there's one hole in here for a screw to pass through, and it goes through here and then fastens down right here on top of this assembly. And there is the rear switch and main power. So this is what the pump assembly looks like with the pumps installed, the high pressure and the low pressure pump. Also, what you want to do is when you disassemble all these, you want to mark the ends of everything you disassemble so you don't get them mixed up when they go back together. This goes down, straight down, and that hole rests on the bottom. Okay, here is the pump assembly, reassembled, just sitting on the edge here, and that's going to be dropped down into the cabinet of the coffee maker. So there's your pro tip for keeping a screw on the tip of a driver that has to go way down the hole. Just put a magnet anywhere near the tip of the screwdriver. So that goes way down here. So we can screw that in between the main power bracket and the pump assembly. Okay, there's the pump assembly down in the bottom of the cabinet, hooked up to the main power bracket. Next is attaching up all of these attachments and fittings where they belong, and then we'll invert these, drop them down in the cabinet where this will match up to that right there, and we screw that down. Don't forget on your attachments, mark them for orientation. Make sure you get all these plugs in correctly.